Alright guys, now we're going to be talking about variable scope within Python, which is simply where a variable can be used. This will be a very short video. I just want to show you guys how scope works so that you understand where variables cannot be used, okay? So if we make a variable like x is equal to 20, this is a global variable. And the reason it's a global variable is because we're defining it outside of any function, just at the roots of the entire program, okay? So if I have an if statement, for example, so if 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, and we can say something like y is equal to 30, this is still a global variable because, again, it's defined outside of any function, okay? So it's global to the entire program. And what that essentially means for us is that it can be accessed anywhere since it's global. So real quick, let's go ahead and print out x and also print out y. Let's take a look at the values, run it. There we go, good. 20 and 30 as we defined it, which makes sense. So let's define a function now. We'll say define my function. It's just a dummy function that will run some code in. So we're going to say x is equal to 40. So now what we have done here is to find a local variable instead of a global variable. It is local to the function that is defined within. So this means that this variable only exists within this function and any code inside of the function, okay? So if we try doing, for example, print x, you have to ask yourself, is it going to print the global x or the x here in the function? Let's run it and see what we get. So we get 20. So even though it looks like we just reassigned x to 40 from 20 that we originally gave it, this is actually giving us a totally new variable that lives only in this function here that can only be used within the function, like I said. So let's see if we can prove that. So first of all, let's go ahead and print out the value of x whenever we call the function. So say x inside the function, x, and then we'll also just call the function right here. So let's run it, see what we get. Here we go, we get x inside the function 40 and then 20. And that makes sense because here we're defining x as 20, the global variable x. Then we're calling the function, we're assigning x to 40, but that's a local variable x to the function. We're printing out that value here, and then the function's over by now, so it prints it again, but this is now referring to the global variable x, okay? So the general idea that you can take from this is that anytime you define a variable within a function, it can pretty much only be used inside that function. Now, technically, you can define a variable as global using the global keyword, but this is not recommended in Python by many people. This is only if you really have to, so I'm not really going to explain that. So I just told you that global variables can be accessed inside functions since they're global. So if I get rid of this, if we run it now, we get x inside the function is 20, because now it's referring to the global one because there is no local x, and then 20 outside as well. So before I was just saying 40 because, again, there was that global or local x that I was referring to instead. And that is it. That's all I want to show you guys for this episode. That is variable scope, which is where a variable can be used. So we learned about global variables, which are variables defined outside of any function, and then we learned about local variables, which are variables defined within a function that only live within that function, essentially. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.